Hey everybody, welcome to Finding Foundations, the pod. This is a space for honest conversations about the moments that shape us, those turning points, that messy middle, and everything in between. In each episode, I sit down with somebody to explore what they've learned along their way, how they've held on to it when things felt really difficult, and what's changed because of it. No perfect answers, just real stories. I'm Karen Tom, and this is Finding Foundations. My guest this week is Fiona Berry of Bloom with Berry, a nature-led wellbeing space nestled above Sedbergh from Blossom Yurt and Birch Sauna. After 25 years working across the charity and NHS sectors, she experienced a midlife awakening. Absolutely not a crisis. She sold her house, her belongings, and set off travelling to reimagine life and work. While staying at Howgill's Hideaway, her friend's glamping site in the Howgill Fells, Fiona had an epiphany and Blossom Yurt was born. Within a week, she'd found a yurt supplier and a flat in nearby Kendal, and today, Blossom Yurt and Birch Sauna are becoming nature's own wild spa, bringing wellbeing back to the land. Fiona offers unique wellbeing experiences including yoga, Ayurvedic yoga massage and Lithuanian-inspired sauna rituals, welcoming both glamping guests and the local community through private bookings and seasonal retreats. Fiona also runs Berry Poetic, sharing inspirational seasonal and folklore-based poems that she creatively weaves into all of her events. Wellbeing woven with words. I am very excited to chat with Fiona, so let's dive in. Hi Fiona, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good, thank you. And so much for joining us today on Finding Foundations. Excited to hear about your journey.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here as well and to tell you more about it.
Bio introduction, and what does it feel like to hear your words back about who you are, where you've come from, and where you are today?
Oh gosh. I get quite emotional actually. I'm a very emotional person anyway. But I think just hearing it and having the opportunity to say it aloud and share with people how I got to where I am. I don't know, I think it just makes me feel proud of myself, I suppose. Like for putting myself out of my comfort zone to make those changes in my life and live a life a little bit different to what I expected.
Yeah, don't we all? And I love that. I think in the end, a lot of things, it all comes back, doesn't it, into like pushing yourself outside of that comfort zone. Just doesn't even need to be that full stretch. It's just to the edge, like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Just testing the water a little bit sometimes, I think. And even just making small changes can make a huge difference. But yeah, I think in some areas of my life I went full throttle. And yeah, made the big extreme changes. But I'm
Well,
very
like,
glad that I did.
and it sounds like we'll get into it, but it sounds like you were blowing like complete C4 boom.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely, but I think that needed to happen for me to get to where I am now. I think without doing that, I would have just stayed stuck and really lost. And once I had that realization that that was what was going to happen if I didn't make some drastic changes, then I think it just became really, I became really driven, I suppose, to make those changes. Um, I think a lot of people have said to me that it was really brave what I did, but I think at the time I was desperate. And I think that's what drove it, really. It was pure desperation for needing to do something different with my life because I couldn't have stayed where I was. I really
Yeah.
couldn't.
And that's the thing, isn't it? I hear that a lot in terms of what really is that motivating factor to make a change. Because people sometimes, like we all want to make change, we all want to do things differently. But when that desperation, when that desperate point is not there, you can kind of coast along and think, oh, well, this is okay. It's all right. What have I got to complain
Yeah.
about? Life's okay. But when you hit that
Yeah.
point, it's almost like there's a driving
Yeah.
factor that goes like, I don't
Yeah.
even care what happens at the end of this. I have to move now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that definitely happened for me. I think for many years, I I ended my marriage in 2016, so it's 10 years this month actually. And I think for a few years after that, I was coasting. I was kind of focusing on growing my career. I did have a really successful career and I loved what I was doing, working mainly supporting children and family work. Somewhere along that line, and I know when it was, because I think up to the point where I realized something had to change, I was still believing that I would meet somebody else, that I'd have a family, that I'd live the life that society had always told me to expect from life. You know, we're fed this story, aren't we, from being very little, that that's kind of how life goes. You meet somebody, you get married, you have a house, you have the children, you have the family, you have that, you have the career. So I think, I was still young enough at that point to believe that that would come my way. And I think it was when I hit 40, really, that I had that realization that actually this might not happen for me. And what does that look like if it doesn't? And I think at that point, that's when the grief hit, and I went through the real grieving period for that life that I thought I would have had.
Yeah.
And after going through that and feeling sorry for myself for a little while, and doing the work and having therapy and speaking to people and exploring those emotions and what they meant for me, then I came through the other side and was like, well, if that isn't what my life's going to look like, what will it look like? Because that's the side of the story that we're never told. How can life look different if you don't get what society tells you should have? And I think I'd been teaching yoga at that point for a few years alongside a full-time job and knew how much it brought me. And so I started thinking, this is actually what I want to do more of.
Yeah.
But then came the realization that how can I do that financially? How can I make that happen? So it took me another good few years to get to the point of this is really happening, I guess. Yeah.
In that way as well, things just once you, without being too sort of university, but like once you're on a path, if you trust and just keep moving and you keep putting in the work, whatever, that it just keeps unfolding and it will just keep taking
Yeah.
you in the direction. But it really is, it's that surrender and the trust that you are in the right path. Thing. I loved what you said. What does that look like? What does my life look like? If it's not that, what is it? And I think
Yeah.
sometimes we don't
Yeah.
ask ourselves these questions enough, do we? Like about what it is that we want, where it is that we're going, and we get a bit stuck in old versions of our society or whatever it is that keeps us hung up about.
Yeah. I definitely did. That came my way. I wanted to build a life that I would be happy with. So if those things still came to me at a later date, great. But if not, my life would already be full enough not to miss those things, if that makes sense. And I am a big advocate. I could harp on about this, and it's actually one of the first times outside of like speaking to my friends and family that I'm speaking this aloud, really. So it feels quite empowering because it is something that I am quite passionate about, especially for women who believe that if you haven't got these things, then you're less than in a way, or you failed as a woman or something. That you can control the narrative of your life and you can change it and do something different, and you don't have to fit inside that box. You can live outside of the box, and actually living outside of the box can be really bloody great. And I'm loving it. It's taken me a long time to get here, but and I still have my moments, but I have built a life for myself that is mine. I'm living and I'm doing something that I'm really passionate about, that I feel is what I was destined to do. You're going back to the, getting university and stuff. I do believe that this is the path that I was meant to be. Yeah.
And some way, but I guess also where you are, there's also every time that you come to that point, it's like we're constantly upskilling, and what got you to one place doesn't get you to the next, and you keep evolving and add new tools and keep changing and keep evolving, and that's what brings you, I think, somehow in that way to that certainty of who am I, what do I want, where am I going. And it's doing that work and really allowing yourself to keep changing and only, like you said, you can do it direct. You are the director. Yeah. People can tell you things, but it doesn't mean that you have to accept it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's that knowing as well that you can keep changing that story as well. You don't have to do the same thing constantly. If you'd have asked me even this time last year, would I have been a qualified sauna master whacking people with birch and oak branches in the sauna, I would not have believed you, because that's how quickly that came into my life. And I think just being open to possibilities as well that might come your way. So not shutting yourself off to things and not being so single-minded, I suppose, on what you want to achieve, but having some flexibility in that for it to grow and evolve, whatever may come into your path. So I think been flexible with and been willing to adapt and change as well. And I think one thing that I've thought a lot about, because I think what took me so long to actually sell my house was that attachment, and being attached to something that stops you then from being able to move. So trying to learn, which is quite a hard lesson, that nothing is permanent and that things change, and that endings can be sad and letting go of things can be really sad. But it often opens up the door for other things to come your way. And sometimes you have to let go of those things to open other doors. And you might not know what's behind that door, but I can guarantee it's usually going to be an adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. It's almost, there is that cycle, isn't there? Like nothing is permanent, even in like the world that we live in. We have spring, we have summer, we have autumn, we have winter. There is a cyclical element to life in general that keeps moving. And I don't know, I think when you think about it in that way, that nothing changes, I just think of dust and stuckness and just gives me the shivers. But
yeah, definitely.
if you think about it in that way, what would you say is the one truth that you've come to, or a metaphor or anything that sums it up?
Don't know about a word or a metaphor, but I think it would be something along the lines of that life doesn't always go to plan, and that you don't have to live life inside a box that somebody else is kind of I think and again, one truth that I've learned that I've just mentioned is that attachment can really hold you back from things. So it's about letting go of that attachment and trusting that in letting go, you're inviting something else in towards you. And yes, it's about, it's a cliche, but trusting the path and trusting the universe and waiting for your stars to align and all of that, which I do believe in, but also sometimes you have to make really big decisions to make those changes, and that takes effort on your part. You can't just wait for it to come to you. You do sometimes have to change things for yourself and put yourself in those hard situations sometimes.
Yeah, I love that.
Hopefully by making those decisions you come through the other side with something even greater.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer that we don't take great leaps to go backwards in the moment. We always move forward. Uh,
I think at the time that I decided to put my house on the market, I was still very much at that in-between stage of not knowing what the chuff I was doing. Because I think, as I said before, it wasn't necessarily bravery. It was desperation that was leading to make some radical changes. And yes, there was an element of trust involved in that, but at the same time, I didn't know what that was going to look like. And so it was really scary, really like that. There was also, what's the word? Kind of anticipation. Yeah, of what might come and the possibilities. So as I said before, I think the biggest thing for me to grow my yoga business and do more in the wellbeing world with the financial constraints that I had. So by putting the house on the market, that would free up some finances for me to do that. But at that stage, I decided that I was going to live on a narrowboat to do that. And that was my ultimate solution, because my outgoings would be so much less that I would be able to afford to do more with my yoga. And I romanticized the idea, and I think I convinced myself that that was the answer. And it wasn't until my house was actually sold and I'd sold all my belongings. I sadly lost my dog as well during that time, which is one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever gone through. But on reflection, I mean, she was nearly 18. And on reflection, I think she knew that our time together was coming to a close, and she freed me up for this next stage of my life. Because then what happened, because I didn't have her to think about, I decided, sold the house, sold most of my belongings, made myself homeless, decided to go traveling for a little while. And it was while I was staying at my friend's glamping site, in the Howgirls Hideaway, that I had this epiphany. And this is where that trust in the universe part comes in and the stars aligning, because until this point, I was still kind of just fumbling in the dark, waiting for a sign, waiting for something to happen. And this was it. And decided that I could buy a yurt to put on the land. And that's when the yurt was born. So until that point, yeah, that's the stars aligning. That's the message from the universe to do this. And the rest has all just kind of fallen into place. And that's when you kind of know that you're on the right path. Don't get me wrong, there's been moments where it has been hard, and there's definitely been some tears and doubt and frustration along the way. But ultimately, I think what I've had is that gut feeling, that gut knowing that this is what I'm meant to be doing. And even though there's times where it's hard, just keep going with it, because it is going to work out.
Absolutely. Like, how do you tap into that?
Oh gosh, big question. I guess it's like we were saying before, that there's an element of going with the gut and trusting that things are just going to unfold. but also doing the work that goes with it. So I'm not just sat here waiting for my business to grow, waiting for people to find me, waiting for the income to come in, which ultimately at the end of the day is what I need to happen. I'm working bloody hard to make this dream. And I have to still work through it and work with what's put in front of me, and work with the disappointments as well. And I think it's when those disappointments happen that you still have to tap into that gut feeling. And I do a lot of meditation. So, I sit with that feeling. I sit with questioning myself about various things and noticing how that feels in my body, noticing what feels right, what maybe feels off, and then questioning, why does it feel off, make it feel better and to work better for me. And obviously I do a lot of writing as well, which helps me explore how I'm feeling about things. Going off on a bit of a tangent now, but
that's it, because there might be people listening thinking, gut instincts, what the hell are you talking about? I've got no idea what this gut is. So it's interesting to what that means to you and how it is that you tap into it. So that's really so
I think it really is a bodily feeling. So in yoga, we teach about the chakras, and the solar plexus chakra, which is in your abdomen area, is linked with that gut feeling. It's the fire in your belly. It's presented by the fire element, passion and drive and motivation. And it's a very masculine energy. And so when you feel it, and, it's where the saying that fire in your belly comes from, which is linked to that gut instinct. And so when you feel it, for those people that aren't sure what it feels like, it's about becoming more intuitive with your body and understanding how your body feels in certain situations. And, when you're anxious, you get that feeling in your chest, that tightness in your chest, and sick as well. And so that's the feeling in your stomach. And so it's really paying attention and tuning in to what feels right in your body. And I guess one of the easiest ways, maybe, which especially as a woman, we might not always like to think about, but if something feels off, if we ever feel unsafe, it's that feeling that you get as well in your body. And so it's the opposite of that when you know that it's something right. You get all those kind of cliches and phrases that we say that do come, they're not just plucked out of thin air. Nobody just made up that you get butterflies in your tummy. It's linked to that actual physical feeling that you get in your belly when you're excited or nervous about something.
And you're absolutely nodding along like, yep. I see this all the time, and I feel like a lot of where we are in society as a general now is very disconnected. We're driven by the mind focus. We're so switched on, and we lose that mind body heart connection. And so it is quite hard sometimes for people to be able to say, where do you feel that in your body? I find that a lot of my work is really embodied. And like for people to be able to connect, and conditions are in the body, quite hard sometimes for people when they're new to this type of work, right? And it's again then finding, is there a colour? Is there a word? Is there a name that achieves something that sort of starts that ball rolling in a way that's really reconnecting you to you? Because I mean, as you just said, we are like huge pools of wisdom that's just waiting to scream out if we will slow down to let our own wisdom come to the fore. We're just there.
Yeah.
We're so quick and busy.
Yeah.
And again, you just said like meditation, journaling, poetry, writing, or whatever your creativity is, if it's dance, being out, whatever it is, it's connecting to that and starting to the things that are showing up in your body, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's definitely what I've a lot during my retreats and through the body work that I provide as well. So through my Ayurvedic yoga massage, it's very different to your usual massage, which tends to be hands-on. This is very much about assisted yoga stretches as well, and people feeling deeper into their bodies and feeling things that they can't necessarily feel just by stretching by themselves. It's going deeper into it and knowing that there's more going on in their bodies. And you know, through my retreats and through the yoga, it's very much about stepping out of that busyness of the mind and reconnecting with how your body's feeling and moving through your body. What energy can you feel moving through your body? And alongside that, through my poetry that I write, which I write a lot of like poetry meditations to give people things to reflect on during that, which encourages them to reflect on what's going on in their own life and notice while they're reflecting on that, what's going on for them, what's coming up for them, where do they feel it in the and all of that kind of reconnection. So yeah, it's what I'm very passionate about, because on a day-to-day basis, we're not doing that. We're not getting that opportunity, and we're constantly living in fight or flight mode. So to be able to actually step back, even if just for half a day or a day, able to have that time to just pause and notice things, hopefully will come up for them as well, that they can take away with, so that it is more.
Absolutely. And I guess I always think of it in that way, as when you stop firefighting everything that's going on in your life, the things that are coming up, and you start to take those steps back, you start to become more of that strategist. Like, and some of those questions, you know, I really love that. Like, what does that look like? How does that feel for me?
Mm.
And asking ourselves constantly these types of questions, it starts to challenge narratives that come up all of the time for all of us. And it starts to, when we can start
Yeah.
challenging them and step back from them and see a lot of these are not, you know, they're not correct. Like, they're just made up shit that's been stored in our filing cabinet for,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And it's really hard to change that voice in your head as well, when we've been so used to it for so long. To
Definitely that you've been doing. And on that note, then, how do you continue to live that every day when, like you were saying, like things maybe feel impossible, like, you know, we're starting a business, growing it, feeling desperate, and I love just like jumping out of that box and crushing it.
I think it's a few different things. One is that I've been given this opportunity. I've got this opportunity. This is happening for a reason. And I've got to keep going at it because I've got this far. I have to keep plugging away at it and reminding myself that it is still very much early days. It's only 6 months since I've been officially self-employed. What else? I think on the hard days, the disappointments, which you're going to get in the early days of business, you know, having to cancel events, feeling like nobody knows you there, and all those kind of things. I allow myself to be sad by it. I allow myself to feel that kind of upset and maybe a bit pissed off as well, that, you know, I'm doing all this work and I'm still not seeing the people come through the door, kind of thing. But then getting back to it, doing the work. What do I need to do next? How do I reach more people? So yeah, not just sitting back and waiting for them to come to me. I think other things that I'm doing that is really helping is going to networking events, surrounding myself with other women in business who have been there, who understand, who know, who've got nuggets of wisdom that can help, who can pick me up when I'm feeling a bit shit, and encouraged me to keep trying again, and putting me in contact with people that might be able to help, all that kind of thing. And I think as well, alongside that, is just knowing that I don't want to go back to that life that I was living. I can't go back to that life that I was living and I don't want to be there again. I've created this life for myself that now I've got so much balance, and I'm doing what really feels aligned with my soul and what I've been brought here to do, and reminding myself that every time I'm at the yurt doing an event surrounded by mainly women. I'm not women exclusive. I am open to men joining as well, but it is mainly women that come to my events. But knowing that I'm making a difference to them as well, getting from the people that are coming is just so soul affirming. It's so just that reminder of this is why I'm doing it. Because as I said before, yes, it's about getting bums on seat. Yes, it's about making an income from this. I took redundancies myself and say that I do need to make money. But more than anything, I love being able to stillness, some sense of peace, some sense of coming back to themselves. Like I said before, if only for that into their daily lives, that helps them cope a little bit better, even if just for a short period, then I've done something, because I've been that person in that situation, needing that support, needing that kind of time out, needing somebody to guide me through that, because we're so busy, we don't know how to do it for ourselves. So having that person to just take the time with you, to be quiet with you, to guide you through some thoughtful processes, to guide you back into your body, then that is what I absolutely love doing. And on the hard days, that is what always.
Yeah, I love that. And you can see like you're so energized and so passionate about. I want to go back to something that you had around you allow yourself to, because I think this is really, really critical that I'll do this. You allow yourself to feel sad, but then you get back on it.
Mm.
And I think there's a really clear distinction there, isn't there, between allowing yourself that space, not collapsing into it, and then moving.
I think it probably does take a bit of practice, because again, as a society, we're told just to put a plaster on it and get on with it. And we haven't been very good at wearing our emotions. I think we are as a society, we are getting better at sharing how we're feeling and accepting how we're feeling and sitting with how we're feeling. But I think as somebody who works in this arena with yoga, with mindfulness, with meditation, with body work, and having practiced myself in those modalities, well, since I started practicing yoga personally, that teaches you to sit with your emotions and not suppress them. And I think a lot of the modalities that I've tried, they do open something up within you. They open emotions, they release emotions, and being surrounded by facilitators that help you those emotions and not. But also, I think for a couple of years, I worked as the head of bereavement care for Alderhay Children's Hospital, which was obviously a very intense job, very emotive job. And there's a danger working in that line of work on the barrier up and not allowing yourself to feel the devastating stories that you hear. Being with families at their absolute worst time, you do have to have a level of detachment.
Yeah.
But through that work, I had to have regular supervision. I had to have regular support from somebody who I was able to offload to and share my emotions with and share my feelings. And I think that really taught me to not lose touch of how I was really feeling and not to be ashamed to say how I was feeling. And yes, there's a certain level of detachment that you sometimes need in a job. And those feelings are human. And so I think from that as well, I have learned to really be in tune and allow myself to recognize how I'm feeling. And if that is that I feel shit, that just go with it, need to do for as long as I need to.
That space is huge, isn't it? But and I think also, and especially in that type of work, I mean, must be so harrowing and hard to hear. There's also sometimes a comparison point. I see this with people who work in NGOs, in charity industries and things like this, where they start to downplay their own trauma, their own sadness, their own things because, well, what have I got to complain about? What they're going through. So I don't have, I've got no, like my life's great. I've got a job. I've got da da da. And we start to compare in that way. And actually, our sadness is our sadness, and we are allowed to own it, whether it is sadness, anger, whatever that emotion is, that we are allowed to feel.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And again, I think it was that job that I did experience a level of that because I do experience anxiety. And even though I absolutely really loved that job and I was really good at it as well, and I knew what I could do for that service to make it even better. But it was NHS and it was very difficult working in the NHS. It was through COVID as well. So I was coming up against barriers with the politics of the NHS, if you like, the funding of the NHS. And so I found it really difficult. And so it was making me ill at the time. And I did go through that whole how can I be feeling like this when all these families that I work with have gone through something so much worse? But I had to learn to honor how I was feeling. And if anything, I think in a way, it kind of led me to drive myself further forwards towards the work that I'm doing now, because when you're working with death, it does force you to look at your own mortality and realize that anything could happen at any time. And so, in a way, I think for me, I wanted to take the opportunities or make opportunities for myself that those children were never going to get. And so, in a way, it did become my driver. And I did decide to leave that job in the end because even though I loved it, it was a difficult environment to work in, not because it was death, but because of the difficulties in the NHS. And so I did leave, and that was my first stepping stone to then creating this new life that I wanted. A bit then.
No, love it. I love the going off on ones. It's my life. Something you did say there that interested with anxiety, and yet you still pushed yourself, got out of that box, gave it a good stamp. Was that a difficult path to go down?
Yeah, I think it's because of the anxiety, probably, that pushed me towards living a different life. Because in the 9 to 5, the daily grind, I don't think I was made for that kind of life at all. And again, through practicing yoga myself, through going to lots of different kinds of therapies, treatments, all kinds of, I've tried everything. Reiki, acupuncture, I've tried it all, in an attempt to make myself feel better, instead of just learning how to manage it myself, and knowing deep down that what I really needed to do was live my life on my own terms and create a life for myself that supported these kind of isms that I have, including anxiety. And I think, the last couple of years, and hitting perimenopause as well, and the realization that but I think there is a lot more going on under the surface for me, that I have struggled with for many, many years, and realizing now that actually it probably is ADHD, which is now menopause symptoms. And so I think, as difficult and as challenging I find some of those isms, as I call them, that I have, in a way, I think I have to hold them responsible for putting me where I am, stay doing what I was doing. And so I have had to pluck myself out of that box to do something different, basically. And through yoga and go on.
Oh, sorry, cutting there. I guess, does it go back to almost as well like that, the desperation, the anxiety, and the tipping point that actually it all sort of combusts in a way that this is not manageable, and something has to give, something has to change.
Yes, definitely. And I think, I joke that my mum thinks I'm having a midlife crisis, but I call it a midlife awakening. And that is absolutely what it is for me. It's this time that, and I think, we've often labelled people as having a midlife crisis, but why does it have to be labelled a crisis? Why can't it just be a midlife change, a midlife rebirth, a midlife awakening? Because it comes to a point where you can't keep going with the things that you've been doing. And I know that in a way I'm in a different situation to many women, because I don't have children, I'm not married, I don't have other people to consider in this as such. I do just have myself to think about. So, maybe it probably does, because I don't have to consider anybody else. But yeah, again, I've lost my train of thought because I'm going off on one.
It's interesting to hear that, like the differences between having like that anxiety, that desperation of like this cannot so where we are in society tells us that there's nothing in connecting back to ourselves. Actually, we need to be, I was the same. I'd done everything, reading books and so many different modalities, trying so many different types of philosophies and whatnot, therapy, coaching, oh God, the works. And actually, exactly as you said, for me, it was really that slowing down and reconnecting back to myself. And for me, it also came through yoga and meditation initially. But I think society tells us, social media, well, not even society, social media tells us we're not perfect. There's not something there. Something isn't quite, square on. You're a little bit askew. You're not falling, you're in that box. You're not in the box. You're an out of size box. And it doesn't like it. So when we do things that are a little bit different, it makes other people also question things that are going on in their life. Like if you went to a party and said, "Oh, I'm not drinking," what do you mean you're not drinking? What's wrong? And what's happening? Are you sick? Are you pregnant? Are you whatever? And it will be like, you would maybe, I mean, I were to, people would ask those questions.
Yeah.
It's just doing
Yeah.
things that are outside of that norm, isn't it? We don't like, as a general, we don't like change, but it just keeps us so stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't like anything that's different either because it doesn't do. And so people do question it. Um, but as hopefully come through while we've been chatting, I am a big advocate for living your life differently and, sticking a finger up at society and saying, no, I'm not going to take what you've fed me because the lies, like you don't have to do what you're telling me. You don't have to live the conventional life. And there's actually a lot of magic that can be found in stepping away from that.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been to half the places that I've been to or met half the people that I've met and the friendships that I've built and the experiences that I've had if I hadn't have done things a bit differently.
Yeah.
And I'll
And just
forever be grateful for that.
and
Pardon?
just being open to those opportunities that come up and
Yeah,
recognize there is a way to do different, and that's okay. It should be
yeah,
this celebration. I mean, I think
yeah.
I'd been before I met Simon. I just turned literally a week after my 40th, and I
Mm,
was not looking to really. I, that's not true. I was looking to meet somebody, but I didn't need to, and I think that was the
yeah,
difference. Where I'd been earlier in
yeah,
my life, it was like that need, desperation, like I wanted to, I had to, and actually, I filled my life with me. And when I
yeah.
the cheesy when I fell in love with me, actually my life changed and it opened up into something different. That when he came along,
Yeah,
it was like, oh, okay, let's go.
yeah, yeah. And there's that old saying, isn't there? It's a cliche, but you have to love yourself before anybody else will love you.
Yes.
And I think that's where a lot of us are still going wrong. And I just got to the point where I decided that I I'm going to build a life for me. And
Yeah.
if at some point somebody comes into that life, then they will complement it. But they're not going to fill a hole that's not there because my life is so full with other things that I don't need it in my life. I am happy and content. I've only been living here in Kendal. It's a year next month, and I've just met so many amazing people, and I can spend my time going on hiking groups with women, going wild swimming, and I it's really hard to explain, but I love the life that I'm building for myself. And yeah, maybe I'd like to meet somebody at some point, but that isn't missing from my life because I filled it with so many other things that I love doing that I'm so fulfilled anyway. And I
Yeah.
think that's what we all need to be striving for.
Yeah, absolutely 100%. And I think that's actually the purpose, isn't it? It's like having that sense of fulfillment in your life, that sense of direction, what you want that if somebody was to come into it, actually that's a brilliant word. It complements. It's not a need, it's not a necessity.
Mm,
It's okay. What is going to evolve into something? But you're already filled, you're already whole that it's
yeah,
it's something different, isn't it? Okay, so
yeah. In fact,
final
I think I've probably filled it so much I don't have time.
yeah, like sorry. No, no, no. So how does it feel today to know that your life has changed actually, and how do you celebrate yourself for it?
Oh gosh, it's like I said at the beginning, I get really emotional when I think about it. And it is making sure that I stop and feel proud of myself and keep reminding myself of the achievements that I've made and not feeling guilty or embarrassed for feeling proud of myself, because again, as a society, we don't blow our own trumpets enough. We're taught to be modest, aren't we? And, don't boast, don't show off and all of that jazz. But I am bloody proud of myself for what I've built and what I've achieved.
I'm proud of you, Fiona.
And again, it's that knowing and trusting that I'm in the right place, I'm doing the right thing, and I'm building something that is creating a space for people to come to that they're getting something out of. And that's really important to me, that this is a space for other people to come and feel some of the benefits that I felt over the years. But I guess, how do I celebrate myself? Don't know. It's hard, isn't it? I mean, I give myself a glass of red wine every now and then.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that's a good celebration. Great, how you celebrate yourself in that way. And within that, then, do you think, is that what you have, more celebration, more joy of self?
Yeah, for myself, yeah, I think so. I guess one of the ways I celebrate myself or reward myself maybe is allowing myself time to go off and do things, like especially midweek, which in the 9 to 5 I would never have been able to do. So being able to go and meet somebody for a coffee on a Monday morning, or going for a hike on a Friday, I allow myself to make time in my calendar to do that. And that's like my little reward to celebrate the achievement. As bad as, go on.
And I've got, carry on.
As social media can be, I think one thing that I am trying to do on my social feed at the moment is share a little bit more of myself, and not just constantly be selling and posting about my events, but allowing people to get to know me. And so as part of doing that, I am having to share my journey and how far I've come, and also reflecting on the highs and the lows of running a business and being honest about that. And so people, so that's one way that I'm using social media to be a bit more positive.
Yeah. And
I don't know. I mean, it would have felt impossible to own a yurt. I never thought that, when I was looking at doing more of my yoga, it was always with a view to hiring a space, renting places. I never thought I would have had somewhere to call my own. And now the yurt is, the yurt is my baby. The yurt and joy. It's where I put my love. It's what I nurture. And a while ago that would have felt impossible, because I didn't even know how to free up my time and financially how to even cut down my hours, more of my yoga in so now.
Amazing. And finally, what would the say to Fiona today?
Well, bloody done for ending that marriage. Well, bloody done for for listening. It's that gut again, listening to that gut and knowing that I couldn't stay in that situation, and not allowing the fear to stop me, because even though I didn't know what would come for me next, and I think that Fiona back then made the right decision, and she put me directly on the path very quietly to where I am now, because it was during that I started yoga. Yeah. And thank you to that Fiona for starting to go to that yoga class, because that is what really has led me here now.
Oh, amazing. You're giving me goosebumps, Fiona. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all of this. I was furiously like rates of great things that I imagine people listening will also hear and be hoovering up. I love hearing women's journey where I love it kept coming back and back, getting out of the box, get out of the box, and find
Out of that box.
out of that box. I think that's
Dance around the outside of the box.
Yeah, I love it. So
I bloody love this chat with Fiona. I was so struck by her honesty and openness, the way that she spoke about rebuilding her life without trying to wrap it all up into some perfect inspirational story. There was one thing that kept coming back throughout the whole conversation, right? You know where I'm going. Get out the box! It's so true. Get out of that box. The stories, the expectations, the identities, those old versions of ourselves that we keep trying to force ourselves back into because they're familiar. And at one point, Fiona said, nothing is permanent and things change. And yeah, for me, that's where so much of our suffering sits. Clinging, trying to control, trying to force life to stay the same when something in us is already moving and it knows that it's time to move. What I loved about this conversation was that it wasn't really about having everything figured out. It was about trust, gut feelings, synchronicities, listening to yourself, slowing down long enough to hear your own wisdom. Meditation and journaling are huge parts of my life as well. And I don't know what I do without these daily practices or how to because when you slow down and is this aligned with who I am? Things start to become really clear. But change also needs action, right? We can't keep waiting for a different life while changing absolutely nothing about the world we are currently in. And Fiona described, I think, sorry Fiona's mum, it wasn't a midlife crisis, it was a midlife awakening, and I blooming love it. And I'm claiming that as well, Fiona. So thanks so much for joining us.